Today I felt like talking about the feminine and how we don't even know what that is, or like we only kind of know, but not really. Um, I'm thinking more about, I guess, various aspects of it that I think are sort of familiar to me or to some of us. But I mean, I don't feel like I understand what the feminine is, and I'm somebody who's thinking about it frequently, and I feel like I'm really aware of the absence of it and the way it's like the negative space that it would and should fill if things were healthy, and the way it's attacked and stuff. And if somebody like me who's thinking about it frequently and, you know, does like meditates every day, does Vipassana, which is I think the closest thing to the feminine, like a practice that helps you be in the feminine that I found. I shouldn't say it's the closest because it is. I mean, in that sense of, I think I mentioned Mark Epstein before, who's a meditator, and he's like a Harvard educated psychiatrist and a really nice person too. I cold emailed him before, and he was super gracious and responsive and stuff. And in his book, The Trauma of Everyday Life, I remember he talks about uh, the masculine being the doing energy and the feminine being the being energy, and coming at that through that viewpoint of what those things are as energies, not what they are as energies that all humans interact with and all humans have within us, regardless of gender. And yeah, he talks about the masculine being the doing energy and the feminine is the being energy. And through Vipassana, I know that, like, literally the teacher Goenka doesn't say this in the 10-day courses, and I wish he'd said it earlier because I think it would help more people out. It isn't until the Satipatthana courses, which are the slightly more advanced courses that you can do. At one point, he actually says, he's like, do nothing. And he stresses it, and it makes things click that when you're doing Vipassana, you're doing nothing. You're just being and you're observing. And I understand that that's a lot of what the feminine is about, and that's how we can unlock that power, I think, through that. I think it, but more than that, I feel it, which I think is more of what the feminine is as well. But I don't know, I've just been reflecting more lately on how I think unknown it is to so many of us so far, myself included, and how we're going to need to come to know it in the next several years, especially. And I feel like that's, those wheels are in motion and we're just kind of on that track regardless. There's this astrologer I listen to a lot, Pam Gregory, and she said something recently specifically about the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces, which was 2 days ago on April 12th. And she was describing the energies we're coming into as like a waterfall. And we're just, like we're in the stream, we're going to go over the fall. We already did go over those falls, I guess. And I felt so much better that day, actually. I felt a lot. The energy felt very different to me on April 12th. And my Venus is in Pisces at 23 degrees, which meant that the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction was exactly conjunct my Venus. Did I say Venus? Venus is what I meant to say. And so I've been looking forward to that and anticipating that and hoping that it would open up more access to feminine energy. And I think it really did. I felt a lot lighter on the 12th. But then I think in relation to that, this other wounding to the feminine is coming up that is surfacing, and like yesterday felt more difficult. And I think it's really trying to give me an opportunity to heal and release that by just being equanimous with it and doing Vipassana as it's coming up. But this larger idea of what the feminine is and grounding it and moving into it, I don't know, I just felt compelled to try and talk about this and just talk about how I don't see anyone else talking about it. Occasionally I'll see it in like spiritual circles or something, or I was going to say maybe I'll hear an astrologer mention it, but not even really. I can't really think of any astrologers using, like thinking about things and framing them in that way. There's that guy Lee Harris I've mentioned before, who's a channeler, who had made that post about the rise of the feminine, but that's the only thing I can think of. It's not something that's, I guess I'm feeling its absence sort of more pointedly in like quote unquote social justice conversations. And I'm so convinced that like there's the thing about this denigration of the feminine, and I like made up this word misofem to describe the denigration of feminine energy. Misofem is so insidious and so prevalent and so sort of it remains so unconscious in so many people's minds, I think, that it isn't something that a lot of people who are doing a lot of often good work for various social justice movements are even aware of at all. Even people who have lived for many years as like biological women, people who would say that their gender identity is female. And yeah, I'm trying to understand better how to shift that. And it feels very related to me to something I've been thinking about for some time, particularly since Trump got elected. And I was going to say it first, but yeah, he only got elected once. I don't even want to say so far because I don't want to put that out to the universe. But I grew up in a place, a small town in Ohio, that went heavily for Trump. And it was a terrible place, in my experience, for a girl to grow up. But misogyny and misofem are so invisible. And there's something else about, like, in other social justice movements, it's like you're either, I mean, if it's relating to combating racism, you probably, there's a likelihood that you come from a family of people that are of the same race as you, right? And in other cases, maybe you're the only one in your family your family of origin, who is of whatever identity there's like a social justice movement surrounding. I don't know, I'm like talking through this now. But there's something about like, if you're a girl, like, and you're in a family where there are male people that you're related to, and maybe, you know, you're fortunate enough that it's a good situation and you feel love from them and you feel love toward them. It's something about that dynamic and how the ways in which that insidiousness can then be baked into family structures. It's like it makes it more invisible in other ways. And I think that combined like with all the masculine energy and social justice movements, it's just like this femme thing. It's just not in balance. It's not in balance anywhere, and it's not in balance in those places. And it's not going to come into balance through the old methods of trying to, like, quote unquote, fight for justice in certain ways. I made a TikTok recently. I was talking about this video I saw. I don't remember if I saw the video on TikTok or not, but it was, I don't know if there's like that white guy. I don't know if I genuinely still don't know if it's like one white guy or many white guys who do this. But whatever this thing is, this person, it's always a white guy though, will like sit outside at a table with a sign that says like blah 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 something, change my mind. And it's the guy's like always like harassing people and like trying to provoke reactions and stuff. And in this particular video I saw that white guy was like talking to a black trans woman. And I forget what was said. Something was said about the idea of something about man, or the idea of men or being male. And the white guy's like you are, like to the trans woman. And she's like, I'm a woman. And the first place she goes to like defend her, like her womanness, she goes like, she's like, I've been raped this many times. I've been sexually assaulted this many times. And it just really made me think a lot about this idea that, like, in her case, I mean, you can assume that she's been forced by society to think a lot about her identity as a woman. And I don't even want to use the word identity because I think it's problematic in some ways. Like, she's thought about being a woman. If you're a trans woman, has like been forced to think a lot about that, probably a lot more than a lot of like bio women have. And the first place that her mind went to defend this idea that she was in fact a woman was the sexual abuse she'd experienced, the sexual trauma she'd experienced. And it just really made me think about this idea that like how much of our current conception of what the feminine is just about like hurt and pain and like being brutalized by these like unhealthy masculine energies, you know? Because I don't feel like I know what it is. I feel like my experience so far has been a lot of fucking like exhaustively trying to boundary around that unhealthy, aggressive masculine energy. And in many cases, just like trying to fight for my own space and like to live my life in my own way, the way that feels right to me without that encroachment. And like, it's like encroachment at best. At worst, it's like fucking trying to come in and like attack you, you know? And and then like being treated as though I'm being unreasonable at best also. Sometimes I'll get treated like I'm super out of line because I want to maintain that space and because I want to live my life in the way I want to live it. And yeah, that's what, like, I remember I dated this guy and I was like 28 when I started dating him. So that's 10 years ago now. And it was when I lived in New York. And his mom was white and his dad was black. And he did a lot. He was a teacher at like a public school in Harlem, and he lived in Harlem and had done a lot of work. Like he was in the teachers union, which is like this whole other thing that was problematic in other ways, and maybe did some good work in some ways too. At least initially, it was meant to do good work, but it became this super powerful political organization. So he was thinking a lot about racial justice, and he was also misogynistic as hell. And like I remembered like the repressed memory of being raped came back to me. That came back to me during my first Vipassana course. Like I was dating him at the time. I recovered that memory, and his mother had been sexually abused a lot as a child by her father. And it was like he compared my experience, which was not, I wasn't raped as a kid. I was a teenager. He was just so dismissive of my experience of being raped. And he was that way, like right as I was coming to terms with consciously dealing with it. So it was like he was like the worst person to be dating at a time we were experiencing something like that. And we broke up soon after. But I guess what I'm trying to say, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Just that abandonment. I remember why I brought him up though. I brought him up because he would talk about this idea of being a man. That's why I thought of this. He was talking about how he would think about what being a man was. And I realized, or at least started thinking about consciously or whatever around then, that I didn't have opinions. Like I didn't think of things in those terms. I didn't think about what being a woman was. It was just like, there was like nothingness there. I don't know. Like I had the experience on a fairly regular basis by that point of mistreatment that had to do with misogyny and misofem, and like trying to navigate that in various ways, and in some cases, you know, not being conscious of it for a long time and then waking up to it and having to address it. But yeah, I didn't think about what being a woman was, and what is that? I mean, I still come back to this idea of like energies, and I think those conversations again about this concept of feminine energy and masculine energy and yin and yang, and this idea that those energies are active in humans of all genders and in the things that we create. I think that can be useful because it can help us to step outside of the bounds of the concept of identity, because all identities are constructs, and also they can change. And so like creating superstructures around the idea of identity, I think doesn't get to the root of what we're trying to heal. I don't know. And then I'm thinking more about mother wound things as well. That's another concept relating to the idea of the feminine energy, and like your lineage and what's coming through and what's passed on from mother to daughter. And I haven't seen conversations about this idea of the mother wound and like children that aren't girls. And that would be interesting to see I mean, I think in a lot of cases, I mean, I can speak about my family of origin. The mother wound there showed up in like contributing to like my brother, who was the golden child in our narcissistic family dynamic, becoming worse. It's very bad for them. Like, I mean, in many ways, I'm grateful that I was a scapegoat kid in that dynamic, because I know that scapegoat kids, it's harder, but if you can get out, you get out, and if you can heal it, then you become like you become a resilient person. And you were, as I understand, the scapegoat kids are typically the most sensitive in the family, and the ones who are trying to speak out and trying to get the family to actually deal with the problems that are in front of them that they don't want to deal with, that they dump on the scapegoat kid. So yeah, it's like, if you can survive it, it's better to be the scapegoat kid. But yeah, the mother wound there did have this negative impact on my brother, in the sense that it was propping someone's narcissism up is never good for them. But then the effects on me as like the scapegoat and the person who, I guess, bore the brunt of that mother wound thing were a different thing, and I'm still navigating them now. It was my birthday almost 2 weeks ago. I turned 38, and something about that birthday feels different. Like, I guess it maybe has to do with, like, if I want to, I froze some eggs just before I turned 37, but they only got 5, even though it looked like they were going to get like 22 or something, which I guess would have been a lot for a 36-year-old. But it revealed that like my hormones are all out of whack, and it seemed to have to do with like gut health and stuff that I'm fixing and have been trying to fix since then. And then they tell you that you need like at least 15 eggs to have like, I don't know, like a 95% chance of having one live birth. First of all, the technology and like the pricing surrounding all of that is total fucking bullshit, and it's infuriating. They charge you so much, so many people can't afford it, and it's like they wouldn't have to charge that much, and then they can act like it's. I just don't trust it, frankly. I don't trust that the service that I was getting was of great quality, and I don't trust that there's a lot of resourcing going into sort of like development in that area, because they're already like ripping people off so hard. Like, one of the clinics I went to was funded by some Chinese venture capital firm, and they had shit tons of them in the States, and it just felt really weird. The vibe there was really strange. I didn't end up going with that clinic, but I don't know, I guess, yeah, it's because it's like 38. Like, if I'm gonna freeze more eggs or something, I probably should do that this year. I'm super ambivalent about it, and always have been. I feel like kids keep you in karma, and I really want to get off of Earth. I really want to set things up so I can just be like an ascetic, basically. Just meditate a lot and get the fuck out of here, hopefully. If I play this life well enough. And I know I'm so fortunate. Like, I found Vipassana. I've already seen tons of benefits. I'm still relatively young. I mean, I remember reading the life expectancy for my generation is 102. You know, if I'm doing another 60 plus years of meditation, I might make some really good progress in this life, and maybe I wouldn't have to come back here. But yeah, this feminine thing, I'm just so clear that that's a really important part of, or a large part of my mission, both important and large, of what I'm meant to do in this lifetime. And I'm trying to write this clown film, and it's just not coming through yet. And I know I can't access the joy and the lightness that I would want to bring through in writing a film about a clown. And it's related to this idea of the feminine, and I want it to awaken memories of what it was like before the feminine was denigrated in other people who feel that they remember that also. I think a lot of us are alive now, and a lot of us have an inkling of that, but my hope would be that this film could help people wake up to it. And Seeds can be a platform for people making films and doing other creative things. And yeah, and I just got dizzy saying that, which is really weird. There's no reason I should be dizzy. I'm not eating or drinking anything, and I'm sitting on the floor. And I don't take things that fuck me up and haven't for many years. There's no reason. This dizziness is strange, but yeah, so I know that that's part of it. And it's just making me reflect more on how little I just don't feel that I see examples of what I recognize to be true, healthy feminine energy almost anywhere in the world. Like, I mean, if I look at even at like famous people and stuff, or I mean, I watch a lot of films and there's some components in like older films maybe, but the way that storytelling is structured, as I've said on here, is super masculine. And it's also, you know, what dates back to ancient Greece, at least. It's something that hasn't been updated in a really long time, and I'd want this clown film to, I'd want to use it to figure out sort of how to bring a balance to masculine and feminine energies within storytelling as well. I'd want it to feel, I want that feeling to get across more than anything. And I'm finding that I'm craving that more when I'm watching things lately. I don't want a specific story or something. It's like I want to go be in a world for a while and feel the energy of that world. And if I don't like the energy of the world of a film or a TV show, then I'm not wanting to watch it. And that has nothing to do with, like, that feeling can exist independent of any dialogue. Images need to be there, though. And sounds help, too. So that feels freeing to get away from that idea of language. I feel like language is such a constriction, and I think it's so masculine. And I've been resenting language for a while for those reasons. But yeah, I don't know. I don't feel that I see the feminine anywhere, really. I mean, there have been some historical figures, like, or some, like, famous people, kind of. I mean, I can think of my friend Eric from high school, I felt like had really beautiful feminine energy. He's the first person I think of. And, like, if you look at, like, Princess Diana, I feel like she naturally had a lot that was just there. And I think her death is, like, I think that it's cool that that was shown on such a global stage because so many people loved her, and it called attention to that and the way her energy was in opposition to, like, this fucking, what is that, the oldest, most long-standing patriarchal structure in recorded history in the British monarchy. So that was interesting, but I think she was killed because of that in a way. I don't mean to, like, victim blame, but I mean to say that there's something about that powerful feminine energy when it exists in that natural state, like I think it did in her. I felt that it did in her, that these other energies, these unhealthy masculine energies that are still on Earth, they really try to come after it. And I feel so convinced that it's related to what I've shared about that Atlantis past life, that, like, this bad masculine energy is like the modern version of the attacker energy from back then. And back then we didn't have, like, feminine and masculine or whatever, like exists now. And relatedly, the woman that I met that I mentioned before, I think on this podcast, this woman Julia, who thought that she remembered a past life in Atlantis and was, like, one of the first people I told about mine. She only felt like she'd remembered one other past life, and she talked about how coming into this life she really struggled with being a woman, but more than that, as I recall, like, just, like, why are there women? And I hear, like, internalized misogyny, misofem in that, but I also take from that this idea that humans were different back at that time. We had, I don't know, the gender existed, certainly not in the way that we imagine it now, and things are different now, and it's something about the personification of these energies that have been so just mistreated for a really long time. I think it's maybe helpful for all of humanity to wake up to it. And I think now is the time. But yeah, like, I was thinking more about this. Like, Marilyn Monroe, I feel like, had a lot of that natural feminine energy, and she was killed. I mean, there are various conspiracy theories, but it's like that thing was snuffed out in her, whether she committed suicide or whatever else might have happened. And I was thinking, I made a TikTok about this the other day too, because again, I'm like I'm a hobbyist. I don't know that much about astrology, although I'm very interested in it and am trying to learn more, like just about every day. And I guess like the Mars Saturn conjunction that was exact a few days ago in Aquarius, that also happened in like 1962. And I was thinking about how Marilyn Monroe died in 1962 and how the energies really shifted. I feel like, heading into 1963 onward, and there was revolution and civil rights, and women's rights followed civil rights, and just like heading into the 60s, the Beatles came to the States and were on Ed Sullivan in 1963. It just made me think that if like Marilyn Monroe had been able to live a little longer, the energies really would have changed in a way that was a lot friendlier to what she had to offer, the feminine energy in her. And maybe, it would have felt a lot better to her. And there's Oprah. I mean, I think Oprah, the abundance that she's found, she connected with it in a very feminine way, law of attraction-y way. There's other stuff. Her energy feels more earthy to me, though. There isn't that sort of flow that I feel with, I guess, Princess Diana and Marilyn Monroe. I don't know. Just it feels like a different, more solid thing or something. And that's all I can think of. Like, I can't think of people I've known in my life besides my friend Eric, who I felt really had that feminine energy. I mean, my mother has more of like a childlike energy. It's like a girl child energy. Her mother was, you like, society would have viewed her as like kind of a proper lady, I guess. But it wasn't feminine exactly what I felt from her. It was something else. There was like a sternness. I guess I'm just trying to say that I don't think it's fucking around very much. Like, it's not around. It's not something I'm viewing or observing as someone who's fucking, been on Earth for 38 years now. It's not something I feel that I understand in myself or have experienced through myself very much. I feel like I have a ton of masculine energy. I'm unfortunately very straight. Like, Kinsey scale, I'm probably one. I forget on the Kinsey scale if like 0 is totally gay and 6 is totally straight. I'm probably like one number away from the totally straight side. But I have all this masculine energy, and I know that I have a lot of Aries in my chart, and I believe I chose to be born into a life like this because the Aries energy would help support me so that I could be an individual. And I think I chose to come into like a neglectful family so that I would also be sort of nudged into this path where I'd really learn to trust myself and rely on myself. And I appreciate those lessons now, especially now that I've healed a lot of it. And I think like the Aries individualism, masculine stuff was helpful, especially coming from, because I feel like I remember this Atlantis life so clearly, and we were so connected then, and it was collaborative, and there was something that is more like this idea of feminine energy that was just the reality that we all knew. So I think coming from that and coming into whatever this fucking reality is right now, where we're in separation and things just feel so like rudimentary to me or something. I'm so like frustrated by quote unquote high tech and how like basic and not evolved it actually is. Because I feel like I remember something that was better, I feel that like in my body. And so, I mean, I think coming in with all this Aries energy was helpful so that I wouldn't maybe fall into too much despair about not having that connection, that type of connection not being available in the energies on Earth, at least so far in my life. My life is Rachel. And but I think it's something, it's going to help more of us to start thinking about this idea of feminine energy and what it means and how it can feel and how it can be infused in the things we're creating and the new systems that we're going to build together as more of these old dysfunctional systems inevitably collapse. Because I don't see a lot of it. And much of what I think is shown / depicted as quote unquote feminine is stuff that was actually of masculine conception. Like things that were dreamt up from a masculine perspective, from a perspective that was skewed to masculine again, and in this unhealthy way that also didn't have an understanding of this feminine thing. And hopefully we'll stop making people with a lot of feminine energy die. Oh, or like just snuffing out their light. I feel like I'm feeling the weight of that more so through seeds lately because there's just so much shitty, kind of brutal energy in the crypto sector. And it's in some ways I feel like I'm getting hit on both sides. I think I've shared this before, a version of this before, in that it's like I can't get through on TikTok anymore. There isn't, TikTok will just ban a video if I mention cryptocurrency. TikTok promotes specifically. And so I can't reach new people through that. That worked really well for a while, and it's just like not working anymore. And so it's like I can't reach people through these systems because they're just blanket banning everything crypto, and it's that same dumb, low level, bad masculine energy. But it's also as though I and by proxy, like seeds are being punished for like all the shitty masculine energy in crypto. Like that's why they're so strict about that now, because there's so many dumb, scammy things. And people kind of, it's interesting. Like there's like this backlash now, and people kind of hate crypto. And it's like that's how I felt for so many years now. But it's like seeds is lumped into that unthinkingly, and it's really negatively impacting us, and it's limiting our capacity to help more people because I haven't found another way to reach more people to share about this. And that's also a function of this denigration of the feminine, like the way that fucking systems that are about helping and nourishing and aren't of that hard energy can just become casualties of it. And that doesn't mean like I can keep going forever. That's one thing I really do have going for me, this ability to just keep going no matter what. But I feel more, I don't know. It's not even like, this isn't even as anywhere near as difficult as like so many other times have been in the life of seeds. But this feminine energy thing is more on my mind lately, I guess. And I guess how much that shift needs to happen. And as a last thought, I saw this talk that Greta Gerwig, the filmmaker and actress, gave. I think it was one of the many interviews she gave around the time that Lady Bird came out. And she was talking about how she went to Barnard with Kate McKinnon from Saturday Night Live. And they're both about my age. Like, I think they either would have been my year in school or a year ahead, because I know Greta Gerwig was born in like August of '83, so she's like 8 months or so older than I am. So they're around my age. And I remember how different the world was then when I was in college and how much worse it was for women. And I feel like I noticed that anytime I watch a TV show or a movie from like the early 2000s or so, I'm just like, holy fuck, like I'm so glad that we don't live in those times anymore, because they were so bad. Like they really were so, even I was trying to watch 6 Feet Under again recently, and I just started feeling bad when I saw the way that Brenda's character was treated. And like the way she was also complicit in it without knowing, because that's just the way women were treated then, even though it was fucked up. And like, so yeah, whatever, that's when we were in college. Me and Kate McKinnon and Greta Gerwig. Anyway, so Greta Gerwig was saying in this interview, like, sometimes people would be like, hey, what was it like going to college with Kate McKinnon? And I think they were maybe in improv groups together, or at least like acting groups together. Probably wasn't improv. Maybe it was. I don't know. They're in some kind of acting group together. And people would be like, hey, what was it like knowing Kate McKinnon back then? Like, she's so great. She's amazing. And Greta Gerwig would be like, yeah, I know. She's incredible. She's so funny. And she said something in this interview about this idea that, like, Greta recognized that in Kate at that time. But the implication was that the world couldn't see it yet. And Greta was like, and then the world changed, and suddenly Kate became this like star. Excuse me. And I've been thinking more about that idea, like, of the world changing, basically. And I feel that coming, and I believe intellectually and in my body, you know, that we are going through this enormous shift. It just feels like it's happening, and it's going to continue happening. And so I feel like that thing could be similar for seeds. And for me, by extension, the world will change, and then what this is can really be seen for what it is, for what it truly is, and what it has to offer, and what it has the capacity to do, especially as more and more giving people become a part become a part of this community and contribute to it. And yeah, so I guess I'm waiting for that world shift to happen. And I think that's the right way to do it. There isn't anything more within that I have control over that I can do, I don't think. I think I'm fully taking like responsibility for like my masculine doing that part of it, that piece of it that is my responsibility in that sense. And hopefully the world will change swiftly. Sometimes it has in the past. Like I've lived long enough to see that and experience it and be amazed by how fast some things can happen sometimes. But right now, yeah, it just feels kind of confusing, and I don't know. I feel kind of tired. I'm just really ready for this shift to happen, and hopefully there's a lot of support on the other side of it. I can keep going on in sort of this more isolated energy forever. I really could. But it'll be better for everybody if this sort of connection with that higher level, higher vibratory energy can come about, and our reach can be, a lot greater through that, and we can help a lot more people more quickly. So hopefully the world will change soon.